aware of that rule.
It actually turned 8:30 in the middle of the call, so I'll just charge you half.
Firm but fair.
And you're live.
Thank you.
Good morning. Welcome to the July 13th meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. We stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do you have any public comment this morning?
Catherine,
Oh, yes.
just one request. I'd like to ask that the commission change the title of the executive session. This is not another executive session, the same one, but I'm going to change the grounds. I'd like to ask the board to approve changing the grounds of it to executive session to discuss performance matter of non-elected personnel.
So moved.
Second.
This one moved and seconded to change the title or the executive session to potential personnel issues.
Performance matter of non-elected personnel. Yeah.
That is one. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to commission comments. Commissioner McKinley.
Monday afternoon after the meeting, I went up to the ambulance station, check in on that. They're putting in the soffit fascia. Couldn't have the shingles, but there's somebody from Schultz Construction was there and said that they need the MEPs to get all the roof penetrations in this week, and then they'll start with the roof.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
like I said, they're getting fascia and soffit done. I haven't been back to check out, see what the progress was, but and then Tuesday I had a meeting with Jason Smith and Mike Getz, Mike Matson, Chamber of Commerce that discussed a long list of things, including budgeting, fairgrounds, the 410 schedule, and business park expansion. Had a good talk with him. Tuesday evening was fire board meeting, and I mentioned before I had 4 meetings that night, so that's one of them I didn't go to. And then report back from Riley. When we had our meeting in Riley, they noticed how we had the big screen and the things, and they said they thought that looked like a good idea, and they're working on it now because they've got the big screen there. Start getting tablets or laptops or something because they print off everything. You know,
Mhm.
everybody gets a big stack.
So we used to do.
Yeah, and so they saw that and they're looking into doing that themselves.
You've been here back when we used stone tablets, didn't you?
Did.
Yeah.
Oh, what? Yeah.
That's what all these rocks are in.
Yeah. You didn't know that? Yeah. Big cheap tablets.
Hey, I like my picture.
I did too.
And then the Tuesday evening, I did attend the meeting at University Park with John Ellerman and Evan Millen. They had asked us to come to their meeting for an update on all the work on towards the lagoon system. None of the neighboring landowners were willing to sell land for lagoons, so they're gonna have to be located on their existing property that owned by the district. They had a couple of locations we're looking at. They had a lot of good questions, and the meeting went real well, I think. And Evan's been the lead on this project, and so he was answering most of the questions. He really did a good job answering the questions, explaining why decisions were made. And I said, well, why did you do this? Well, you can't because you have to,
Mhm.
KDHE rules say you have to do this and that. He did a really good job explaining it to everybody. So like I said, he got to field most of the questions. John and I got a couple, but they haven't took the brunt of it. But it was a good meeting. Everybody seemed to be, they've all got questions on stuff, but it seems to be going all right. Wednesday morning was the Flint Hills Veterans Coalition. Main thing was just reviewing all the plans for the Veterans Day Parade. And Wednesday evening, I attended a catback event, the alumni team that's going to be playing in that summer tournament starting down in Wichita next week. And we had a chance to talk to them individually for a while, and then they all spoke to the crowd. And they're all they're all good guys and they had fun. They all pick on each other. But they also, people had questions about how they do it and what's it like playing overseas and stuff. It was a fun evening.
They make good money doing that.
And that's what they said. They said some places, although one of them talked about one place that went, when they got there, they put them in an apartment that was a dump. And they said, oh, we'll get you a better one, because then they were on a road trip. When they came back, it was still in the same place. And so he said, I came home.
And I asked them, was that better than the ones you had in college? Or
Yeah, right.
That'd be a good basis there.
That's all I got.
Okay, Commissioner Fort.
Yeah, it's been a week. So much so I'm still trying to type up my comments this morning. That's how far behind I am. Most of it's been work-related activities and it's challenging. I'll just say that. It's summertime, so it's the way it usually goes, but it's not going real good this year at all. So anyway, it is what it is. Yesterday morning, I was on K-Man to do the In Focus program. Yes, I was on a Wednesday. It is still on a Tuesday. They had some challenges with their schedule on the holiday, so they moved and shifted some things around, and it actually worked better for me this time around anyway. So it will stay on Tuesdays. I'll just point that out. I want to say thanks to Rich. He joined me on the program to discuss the budget, elections, and what's all occurring with those currently. Some of the other topics we discussed was LAVTR. I'm going to mention that again here in just a second. Flexible scheduling and survey that went along with that. Talked a little bit about today's fence viewing. There's a couple other subjects I probably missed in the midst of that came up along the way, but good dialogue. The hour goes really, really fast when you have plenty to talk about, and good to have some time every month to talk about the important things that are going on here in Riley County and with the commission. And thank you, Rich, for joining me on the program amongst your busy schedule as well. Wednesday afternoon, I had my monthly teams meeting with the National Association of Counties Community Economic and Workforce Development Committee that I'm on. Our main purpose this month was to go through all the committee's proposed resolutions, which I have here somewhere. That's the staff. That will be discussed and voted on during next week's annual conference and exposition, which is in Travis County, Texas, Austin, basically. Some of those resolutions included appropriations, providing federal appropriations for new market tax credits, low-income housing, reauthorizations of funding for the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the EDA, Economic Development Association, and there was several other ones kind of involved in each one of those departments as well. All right, the last one we discussed was a resolution supporting legal migration for workforce. That was quite the conversation and dialogue. The challenges that we have with workforce, I think at some point in time, I came to the conclusion that we have to support legal means of providing what it is that we need to do, whatever it is that we need to do, challenges aside. And I think if everybody was just to sit down and work through that, I think we could find a way that would actually work, but we're far from that. So that is what it is. That other thing I want to go through this morning, I don't know if everybody received this email from KAC on the LAVTR. Something that was discussed at the Commissioners Association. I think it was discussed a little bit during last year's annual conference there in Kansas City. It's pretty telling. If you look through the letter that's there, I mean, this is an actual supposed to be funded statute by Kansas statute. KSA 79-2959 is the actual statute. I'm kind of working through, going through what all it goes into, and I'd probably say from 1965 there's some things that need to probably be added, including internet sales tax. Probably at some point in time as we move through EV, something's going to happen there. Whatever we do on that probably needs to be incorporated and applied and come back as well. So there may be some changes in terms of that structure, but the statute's still in place. I know they're gloating that they have $3.4 billion worth of basically savings right now, rainy day fund. If I'm not mistaken, the yearly average on that to fund that in full, as the statute lays out, is about $250 million. Doesn't really even make a dent in it. And the arguments that everybody's having on property tax, whether you're for a rebate, whether you're for a long term, whatever it is that you're for, this does it automatically. This is probably the quickest way to actually reduce property tax in the state right now. And there's dollars available for it. And on top of that, it's statutorily required. Can't beat that dead horse with any more than a stick without having a horse there to actually do it. But that's the point. It needs to be taken care of at some particular point in time. And we need to make an effort to make sure that they know that that needs to be taken care of. And there are several counties across the state that actually want to do much like the school district has done and actually propose a lawsuit. I don't favor that. I don't think that that's necessary. I don't think governing entities suing each other is of any value back to the property taxpayers and hardworking Kansans either. But there's a way that we need to get that back. It benefits counties and municipalities, and it benefits Kansans. And at the end of the day, that's what we're all representing. I would point out just in dollar figures, as we went through our budget, we're about 2.9, a little north of 2.9 million short of being able to reach this supposed revenue neutral rate. Well, the dollars that we're missing for Riley County is 3.2 million. Those dollars came back. We could reach that point and have an extra surplus involved in that and not change anything in our budget that we've currently already proposed. And I know it's still just a proposal, but I'm just pointing that out because these are easy ways to fix some very, very dense problems at this point in time, and it's just not being done. So that's my soapbox for the morning.
I have a question. What's the KAC doing? Are they gonna be doing more intense lobbying on that or what?
There's differences of opinions amongst counties of how we kind of go forth on that as an association. I mean, I think this letter here that was sent is a good start. It allows each one of the counties to kind of apply that to the local end of things. I think if this, it was in last year's House budget and it was voted on 83 to 40 something. It was overwhelming vote on the House floor as part of the actual state budget. But once it got to conference committee and connected with the Senate side of things, it got stripped out. And it leads me to believe that wasn't the conference committee that did that. I think that was House and Senate leadership. But I might be wrong on that, but that's just the way I'm viewing that. So I do think, and I've mentioned this, that you do have to work with leadership on both sides of the House and the Senate. And I don't know, maybe with budget staff in the governor's office too, for that matter, and get everybody on the same plan on that. But I think it's something that local municipalities and counties need throughout the budgeting process, and our working Kansas need tax relief, property tax relief for certain. So once again, that was my soapbox. No, perfectly good question, and something that we need to work on throughout 23 and definitely through the legislative session in 24. I feel if we don't get that in the next couple of years, it's going to come off the books and it'll never happen again. I think it's a good likelihood.
It's always possible. Their simple answer on the state side is repeal that statute.
Yeah.
And you've seen how fast they can do that when they really want to.
At the end of the session, when nobody's paying attention and everything, negotiations are behind closed doors. So, yeah, I had a couple other things just in the midst of time. I'm just going to let that go. So I thought this was far more important to discuss this morning and get out publicly.
Okay.
So that's all I've got.
Okay, well, mine's short. So
Got
Monday after our meeting, I met with Elizabeth Ward, and we discussed the 410 proposal and different things we could do, options, and then some other personnel issues. Tuesday, I had an appointment to get a COVID booster and a second shingle shot. So I had quite a lingering side effect from it yesterday. I was pretty worthless, but anyway, I did have a dental appointment yesterday. Stopped by the historical museum, checked out their new exhibits, and worked in the office for a while, going over budget numbers, which is reading. Also followed up on a lot of phone calls and messages. That was pretty much what happened. I feel better today, so it's good. It's like a 1 day, 2 day thing. But anyway, okay, let's get on with this.
Commissioners, I have the 3 purchase authorizations for the Rushland 10 skid unit, dirt work for Ashland Fire Station, and dirt work for University Park Fire Station 110.
I guess I'm curious on that. I'm trying to pull up the agenda, which of course will not cooperate with me there. This work to be done all at the same time or separately or?
Yeah, I don't know on the schedule.
Okay.
Well, they might follow each other, but it's the same individual doing both, so I imagine you do one, you do the other one.
Okay,
I think he's gonna get the dirt work done as soon as he can.
okay, sounds good.
I was thinking they were gonna get some cost savings by.
Oh, yeah.
Together.
Do we need to make separate motions on each
You
one?
can do one and I'll just fill it out appropriately.
Okay. Go ahead and make a motion to approve the purchase authorizations for dirt work at Ashland Fire Station, University Park Fire Station, and for a brush 110 skid unit.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve purchase authorization for Ashland Station, University Park Station, and for brush 110 skid unit. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All three signed, please.
Oh, I was just gonna say, what was the timeline on the dirt work, basically?
The actual one, virtually immediately. The UP one would be once we get the land use agreement done.
Okay, I just figured once
So
people
it could
start,
be a few months maybe.
okay, I just figured once people start seeing work out there, they'll kind of wonder what's going on, so. Thank you.
Yep.
You. Next, commissioners have the signing of the 2024 extension budget.
Go ahead and make a motion to approve the signing of the 2024 extension budget.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the signing of the 2024 extension budget. All in favor?
Aye.
3 copies signed, commissioners.
You got it already?
You bet.
I brought some along.
Okay.
We'll just sign the ones we've got if that's okay.
That's
Okay.
If you want to sign 6, we can have.
No.
Yeah, we, no. It's a federal program, you have to sign 8 times.
Yeah, per page. 8
No,
times.
it's just you. Chair.
Well, then you'll have to sign something verifying that you signed the previous document.
And then sign something on the previous document of the 864, I guess, total.
Seem to read-
Make sure it's safe and secure. I didn't notice that's why there's not a lot of trees around Washington DC.
What's that?
You want a copy?
Probably one reason.
Yes, I need one, and that's all. Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Well, thank you for working with us.
You bet, always.
Take care, Gary.
Thank you.
Your next commission need a motion to accept low bid submitted by Highway Trash Service in the amount of $26,734.80 per year, with the option to renew the contract annually for additional years.
At that price, Evan,
Yes.
Oh, it's okay. That's my note here too. Ask.
and I come back next year and it's 36,000. It's a crazy figure. I mean, I know things are going up, but geez. Okay. Well, that makes me feel a little bit better about things, I guess. Okay, now I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve and award the contract to Howie's Trash Services in the amount of $26,734.80. With the option to renew that contract for 4 additional years.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Howie's Trash Service for service in the amount of $26,734.80 per year with the option to renew annually for 4 additional years. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Need a motion to approve the letters and resolution for the following council advisory boards: Matthew Rutkowski, Riley County Public Health Council, Catherine Pope, North Central Kansas Library System, and Krista Long, Solid Waste Management.
Yeah, so moved.
Uh,
Second.
I have a question on. What is that? Occupation? I can't read that. It's an occupation.
Do not know. I
And
can't
that,
read it either.
and that. Catherine Pope, I was wondering, what
Can't read it either.
would be nice to
What
know.
was the question? I'm sorry.
Oh,
On the form they filled out.
Catherine Pope on her form, it gives home telephone occupation. Can't read what she said, this for not occupation.
Oh, I don't think that. Yeah, I don't know.
It doesn't
Not
say
gonna guess.
in the comments, but yeah, I mean. It's fine, but I just was wondering.
No, we'll see where that's at.
It's packet, page 22.
Oh, no, it's it. Um, MDAC, I think it's an abbreviation. It's me too.
Yeah, I was trying to read all these, I do, and it's just kind of wondering. The library system, I don't think.
Again, you love acronyms, right?
Usually if they're acronyms, you usually capitalize them and or put periods
Yeah,
with them,
I
but
was just,
That looks like an acronym.
Yeah.
or
I was
something.
thinking maybe a teacher or.
Motion on the advisory board.
okay, unless that's a hang up on all of this, I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to approve the resolution. The applications to serving on county advisory council boards.
I'll second.
So moved and seconded to approve the advisory board appointment letters and resolution. All in favor?
Aye.
All three signed, please.
Be good if we get these in, if you can't read something. give them a call.
Didn't even notice that. you. Next up, Raleigh County Personnel Action Form, Kyle Lewis, new hire as needed intern, emergency management department. All three sign, please. Speed things up with Commissioner. Do you have any items for the joint city county meeting?
No, I was looking on the tentative agenda thing they have set up on there. I thought there was,
Same thing.
I thought there was something from the Food and Farm Council. There wasn't anything on them. So I don't have anything else. I guess they said it's gonna take like 20-30 minutes or something.
Yes, probably her presentation, but if we get it there, then I don't think we need that.
I don't think so. I think that's just kind of an annual update. I think that was part of the discussion on that.
Have we heard anything more on the controllers? So
I hope not.
Well, I don't know if they've outsourced the shelter or what's going on. Maybe we ought to ask. People are asking me. this.
I tell you, that might be a good question to ask Thursday morning. With the new Parks Director giving a presentation.
Oh,
Sure. That'd be a good question to ask him.
Interesting thing.
Mhm.
Any items for intergovernmental election commissioners?
It'd be a good time to bring LABTR up. Is that too soon?
I don't know that it's ever too soon for that. I mean, we can always talk about the fact that we had that communication from KAC.
But
They're encouraging counties to speak up about it.
I think we need to get cities on board with that too.
Absolutely.
Present that.
That'd be John.
I'll let Clancy do the hard lifting there and then I'll come in to make the save.
He has faith in you. Sounds
Pretty
good.
Sounds like
His
a
talent's a
good way to
little bit
look
better
at it.
than maybe the Royals pitching staff right now. I give him credit for that.
Good, then I won't have to say anything.
Need a motion to approve payroll and accounts payable commissioners.
Yeah, so moved.
Second.
So moved and seconded to approve payroll and accounts payable. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
All three sign, please. Any changes in minutes, commissioners?
I didn't see anything on there. Although I have to admit, I didn't actually look at it in the
way it
store sometimes, so.
No, I read through it, I didn't say anything.
Okay.
Motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written from the July 10th meeting of the Riley County Commission.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the July 10th minutes as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Tentative agenda, okay, commissioners. Agenda.
It's just that one different thing. We might check to see if it's the same.
Rerun.
Yeah.
When was that?
What date was that? Do you remember? It's on the agenda.
Yes, it's off your tentative agenda now.
Oh, it is?
Yep. It's on the joint city county, but
Okay.
yeah. Any items next week's press conference, commissioners?
Nope.
If not, it's time for executive session. Full 20 minutes, Clancy?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll go ahead and move the county commission, including Chairwoman Foki, Vice Chairman Ford, and Commissioner McKinley recess into executive session on a performance matter of non-elected personnel to protect privacy of the employees and exception to the Kansas Open Meetings Act. With Clancy Holman, Riley County Counselor, Attorney for the Commission, Elizabeth Ward, Human Resource Director, and Anna Burson, County Appraiser. The open meeting to resume in the County Commission chamber at 9:20 a.m.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to recess into executive session until 9:20. All in favor?
Aye.
Several people said there were two, and I don't know if these are the same name, they said there were two. That may be a problem. That needs to be in, I don't know if this is.
I have no idea on that either.
I didn't know names, but. There were two, several different people told me. Two of them.
I think you got about a good half a dozen in there, have some different personalities.
Yeah.
Good way to put it. Only different, very strong.
Yeah.
Good to go?
Be back up.
Okay. We'll go ahead then and move that the Board of County Commissioners come out of executive session.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded that the board come out of the executive session. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Also move that the no consensus with actually and binding action was taken during the executive session.
I'll second.
So moved and seconded that no consensus was reached during the executive session. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you, John. That John, not just John. I was thanking you.
He's John too?
Yeah.
Oh.
Please keep
Too many Johns
responsible.
around here
I
now.
hope that's his
Sorry
name.
about
Is it what I've been calling?
I don't know.
Maybe he's doing that. He doesn't feel he can say it.
Right, we exceeded the limit of John's one.
That was even before me.
Okay, yeah.
Morning, Commissioners. Clancy Holman, Riley County Council. The commission agenda report I have for you today is one that we're happy to bring to you. It's basically just background information. Get your approval on a temporary construction easement necessary for the North County EMS station. We do want to extend our thanks to the landowner involved. Mr. Clark, he was very reasonable with us. He was easy to deal with, very fair. And that resulted in a win-win basically for both parties. He is being paid for a temporary construction easement that is necessary. The CAR talks about some portion that's being missed by the engineer. That's not the public works director. No, it's the engineer under contract, and those things happen. Did not realize that, did not provide for the fact that there was going to need to be a temporary construction easement for the concrete forms in order to do the work necessary to widen that alley. With this temporary construction easement, that will be provided. As the CAR indicates, an interesting anomaly that came up as we prepared to do this was, okay, there's a statute that requires any kind of delinquent property tax, and here's a small amount. Needs to be paid before someone who's being paid by the county can receive funds. And so that affected the amount to be paid, as is indicated in there, but that's taken care of, compliant with that statute as well. But I do want to thank Mr. Clark. He was very fair. We couldn't have gotten this done so fast without his cooperation and without the hard work of both Deputy County Councilor Craig Cox and Legal Assistant Janet Ching. They both worked very hard to get this done very quick. And just as an aside, don't ever expect anything to be done that quickly again. Just kidding. But it worked out very well.
I'll just go with the thought that you set the bar pretty high. See what I did?
That's why I'm trying to escape that.
It can be done
It can be done, yeah.
with Craig.
In these limited circumstances. It worked out very well. So unless you have questions, that's all I
So
got.
I think,
You set the path for Shelley. No, we expect that.
Exactly.
We expect that.
Feel free to hold her to that
Oh,
standard.
okay, but now you know.
I think it's perfectly reasonable for you to do.
I guess my question is on the timeline of things, does that put us kind of back on track of getting all that tied in together at the same time?
It really should.
Okay.
So I've already reached out to the tree removal company. So they should be able to get started next week. I told them I'd email them today, once this was done, to say, yes, once I get the signed copy, we can move forward. But yes, we had a drop dead date of July 31st to get all this done before that concrete company had to move on. So we should be able to get that done within that time frame.
And we're still looking at the end of September.
September 22nd is the date that they have given us. And I've not been doing anything different.
For the entire project.
Correct.
Nice.
Turnkey.
Yeah. You start setting up ribbon company and something,
We've
yeah.
already started working on that.
Okay.
Vivian reached out to me a month ago to start working on that, so.
Good for her. She knows your timeline, obviously.
Yes, she does. She's been very good,
Good.
been very much involved in this, so, and then sorry, I'm taking over your meeting.
Yeah.
I'll be back in front of you here in probably a couple of weeks to do the rest of our hiring process and to start integrating the staff. So that once we're ready, we can, once we get the keys, we can get our stuff moved in and get it staffed.
Thanks, David. That's all I had unless you had a question. Just ask that you go ahead and approve the easement.
Yeah, pretty important. Go ahead and move, that we approve the payment of $476.92 to Glenn Clark for the temporary construction easement.
I'll second.
So moved and seconded to approve payment to Glenn Clark for the temporary construction easement. Aye.
Sure. Sign.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Commissioner.
Thanks, David.
Anna, are you available post meeting to chat for a few?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You've got,
Commissioners, I'm up at 9:30.
you got 1:30, so sometime between 10 and 1:30.
I just right after the meeting, if all possible.
Yeah, I'm heading for the
Okay,
remainder.
okay, sounds good.
It's true.
Keep coming back.
Like a king or something.
That may be weird enough, but you'll be here for a long time. Hope so.
Got the right color on.
I don't like to turn around and you at my age, because I was about to 8 when I started.
I'm surprised you remember.
If you weren't depressed when you showed up, now you should be.
Whatever you do, don't turn into that. Visually speaking, sorry. I guess that wasn't any better, was it?
You really just keep on,
I'm gonna
keep on digging.
Reminding that we're gonna be alone together in a field later on this afternoon. We were talking and he went the other direction. I don't know.
Right back.
Yeah.
Person. I thought there was a
Commissioner who?
Isn't he there? You're the one who's responsible for turning on the AC outside?
Yep.
Okay, get on that, please.
Just like the rest of them are broke. I hope I don't have any break. That time of year when it gets hottest.
It's the humidity more than anything else.
Everything's gray.
I woke up this morning, like everything just like, it just stuck to me.
I could just tell by looking outside, I'm gonna have to gut up and see what outside the window is just.
Oh, yeah, we're all-
Moisture. Let that up.
Yeah.
Not gonna be a good day.
Really?
Few blocks. He came in about. River Hills Road, that all of a sudden, it was like went through a wall. It's all you can see, and all of a sudden, it's completely gone.
Okay, well, I would go out and one of them in one of the retention ponds up by. Angler Park.
Oh.
Creek, it always has fog.
That's
Really
not
good.
pretty.
Ready, commissioners?
Yes.
First thing, have clarification. I talked to Evan as he was leaving regarding the solid waste contract. They do have the ability within the contract to come back with an increased rate each year. So he said he misspoke when we were walking over there. He said he was going to send you an email. So it is renewable. This year is the price that it is, but years after that, it can be increased.
Oh, on the trash.
Okay, yeah. Yep, transfer station. I said solid waste transfer station agreement.
Okay, that's what I just thought, surely it's
The
not
trash,
Nobody's
trash will be picked up, not transfer station, but trash.
Nobody's gonna leave for 4 years.
So, yeah, he did catch me.
But it does say we have options, so if you
He said
like that
he's-
price increase, we can.
He'd be sending an email to you to clarify, and I told him I'd mention it. First report here, commissioners, is 2023 economic development cash flow analysis. You can see the only expenditures were 7,943. The 2023 unencumbered cash balance in that first box on the left is 204,787. Still have remaining budget authority of 189,000, so doing okay so far in that. Any questions on the economic development? You can see down below the amounts that got paid out. Since it is past July 1st, there's substantially more. The other 50% of those appropriations has been paid out by now. So you will see that in the upcoming July report. Any questions on those?
What was the 794386 for in the expenditures for June?
It was, I did check on that, CASA, the 6,909.
That was in June.
Three. I believe it was the Flint Hills contribution.
That should have been a little less than originally projected.
Yeah.
They got some federal dollars.
Yeah, those were the only two, but the other 50% of the appropriation amounts for those others, chamber and those has gotten paid out the first of this month, July. These only reflect numbers through the end of June.
Those
Any other
payments are usually in
questions?
January and then at the end of June.
Yeah, January 1 and July 1. Next, Raleigh County Building Cash Flow Analysis. You can see, this is one I talked to you about this year. I'm really watching, but we have Brittany watching. And I've talked to John about it. This is one I'm concerned about, exceeding its budgetary authority, possibly needing a budget amendment. John thinks we can manage it throughout the year, but like I said, this is one that's averaged $33,333 per month so far, and if we continue at that rate, it will be tilt, but we'll have to do a budget amendment as long as there's cash authority if needed, but John doesn't think we will need. It's also one, because of these increased costs, I suggested we go up a little bit in the budget, which we did for 2024. Any questions on that? Unfortunately, everything is getting more expensive. 2023 Riley County CIP cash flow analysis. The transfers in, of course, is the transfers the board gave us authority to 3 million, and then the 1.89 million remaining of the ARPA to go into there to be used for the 2 EMS facilities, of course, and then
Right on cue. Sirens.
exactly, almost like we timed that. And then yeah, we'll see where those projects come in, because as we know, the cost when the bids came in was way more than I thought they would be. We haven't even started building on the big facility, so who knows what costs are going to do in between now and then. So we may need even additional CIP monies to complete and furniture and fixtures for those projects.
You just keep the floors there for a while.
Yeah, we can take a bunch of used office equipment.
Remember, we have a little over 14 million left in the federal funding. Those 2 projects will exceed that, I am sure. And so, we've also promised some funding for the Keats project. So there's,
University Park and stuff.
yeah, University Park was a potential as well, but we'd
They
already,
mentioned that to us.
oh yeah, we put another, we just had a request from someone's, I think Anna sent me a memo about someone wanting to have a meeting about potential use of funding for something of federal funds. I said, yeah, those funds are already spoken for, plus some probably, so.
What about the interest that's going into the general?
No, it goes into this fund.
It goes into this
Uh-huh.
fund,
Yep, it does.
because that's been going
And
on.
we'll need it.
Yeah.
And we will need it for just those projects mentioned.
Yeah.
I'm afraid.
I think anybody else coming in asking for that, I think, sorry.
You can see, projected 2023 cash without reserves, 9 million. You can see down below that box down below is always important to remember. We don't want to spend 2.4 million basically because that is reserved specifically for those projects, and that hardware refresh reports is a big one.
And that's in 25, so that'll be the
Correct.
next budget we work on, so we'll have to figure that one out.
We add to it each year to get it up to the amount of money we believe we're gonna need. You can see remaining budget authorities, excess of 6 million. And revenue to date, of course, 6.9 million. You can see the list of projects down below and how much is remaining on each of those projects. Any questions on any of those, commissioners?
And speaking of CIP, we haven't had a work session on that in quite some time.
Try to do that shortly after budget.
Okay, we usually
Talk
use-
about it.
okay.
Yep. Budget is the big item right now. Detailed expenditure report for the month. Commissioner, you take time to look through any of these and have any additional questions, let us know. Get you some answers. Here's the half-cent sales tax, the original half-cent sales tax, or the renewed half-cent sales tax, I should say, not the original. You can see we ended revenue collection in February. You can see the expenditures that we've had there in June, nothing substantial at this point. I do imagine John will be spending a fair amount of that money this summer, construction projects in fall. You can see right now unencumbered cash is 1.36 million. So there are a lot of projects that are designated to use these funds on. At the current point in time, we still have 3.7 million in remaining budget authority.
That's the total amount left over in it? Or no?
Yeah, right now, 1.36. That's not identified for a specific project.
Right.
And of course, we never know if the project can come right on or
Way
Yeah.
off.
lower or higher.
Budget's not.
Like John said, he was surprised with the prices and culverts that we got not too long ago in our favor compared to what we thought. So you just never know what price you're gonna do, but generally we expect them to be higher. 2023 detailed expenditure per project per department. See, there's 3,128,000 still. Here. That. 2023 detailed expenditures per month per project. See there. How much remaining project estimate is left? And then the new 0.2% sales tax. You can see the revenues are coming in good. No expenditures to date. Something that I would watch and kind of talk to John on Wednesday when we're that K-Man deal is something that I watch when we receive the reports on sales taxes. This month's sales tax collection was actually less than the comparable month for last year. And that's always kind of a little red flag to me, but they don't always stop them at the same date, from year to year. So, but the previous month besides that wasn't that much higher than the previous year. I just think it's something to watch. Those are things that catch my attention. Definitely don't want sales tax to go backwards, but if it starts doing that, we need to be aware budgetarily. See right now, unencumbered cash, 826,000. Any questions on that? Of course, no detailed expenditures, as no expenses have been paid out. Commissioners, any questions on any of those reports? Okay, next we will have Jason Smith or Darren probably at 9:45. The commissioners, you go through those reports, have any additional questions, just let us know and we can get some answers for you. Thank you.
So Joe, you have a birthday? Next week?
Saturday.
It was right before mine. I couldn't remember how.
Yeah, it's Saturday.
A week before it was the meeting.
When is
Hello.
Morning.
Last year, I guess.
Last year was the day of.
Yeah, both of them were the day of. I couldn't remember the week before. It was, yeah, go ahead. Not like 2 minutes. Yeah, thank you.
How old are you?
That's coming up for me too. Ugh,
What is yours?
September.
Oh, it's fun to get older.
No, it's not.
Have all sorts of
It
changes.
definitely beats the alternative.
Yeah.
I'm feeling
You
my
get
age this
smarter
week.
and you get to make more excuses.
No, I tend to think you just listen to everybody else's. That makes you feel better.
Me yesterday. So,
Really.
it's fine. I can out of it. Yesterday, one night, just screaming at me all day.
Yeah, my left shoulder just giving me this right now.
I'm having that same issue myself. Yeah, I just had it scoped earlier in the year.
Just so y'all know, I feel fine.
Okay.
Whatever you need to tell yourself, Lance.
I didn't say I am fine, I said I feel fine.
And when you retire, that's.
Yeah,
Oh, that's why you're feeling good. Never mind.
that helps.
Yeah, it's within sight, huh?
Yeah,
You got that calendar at home pulling the days off.
Yeah.
a little soon for that.
Year and a half so long.
That word's not even
calendar.
that word's not even in my vocabulary.
You gotta keep working.
I know.
I know.
I gotta pay for you and you and you and you. Yeah, I know.
Pay for our retirement.
You need to look for a third job.
I am.
You're working, spend money,
Yeah,
spend money.
that's my retirement plan.
You can see what my retirement plan is.
I have a social security statement, it says 77, so. I can't even count that high.
Uh-oh, we're in trouble with the budget then. aren't
Don't
we?
make it easy for me.
This conversation's all for the public record.
Yeah.
Be careful.
Yeah.
I don't hide it. I've told everybody here, playing the lottery is my retirement. Whatever social insecurity provides at the end.
Yeah.
So.
So it's 15 seconds.
Flash, is that true?
Yeah.
Good morning, Chairwoman Foki, Commissioners, thank you for having us here. Darren Solden from Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce and give our monthly economic development update. First want to start off by saying thank you for consideration of our budget request during the process here over the last month or so. And obviously, we look forward to continue to work together with you all and work on behalf of the county with our economic development and military efforts. So Christian's going to update on some of those military efforts this morning. I'm just going to touch on a couple things. First, entrepreneurship wise, just a reminder that the chamber, and we do this in partnership with Potawatomi County Economic Development and traditionally Erie County Junction City Economic Development's been part of it as well, but support the Small Business Development Center position here in this region, house that person out of the Manhattan Chamber. We provide some office space as well as some financial support for that program that allows there to be an outreach position that serves Riley County and in the surrounding region. And so James Monson will, Thursdays don't always work out real good schedule wise, but I'll get him over here in front of you here in the relatively near future. Is the current SBDC advisor. Some of you had worked with Nadia Arbello previously. She's actually currently the interim regional director out of the Topeka. This falls under the Topeka regional office, but interim regional director. And that's a program that's supported at the state level through the Kansas Department of Commerce and then through Washburn University for this region, obviously at the federal level through the SBA. So as we get close to celebrating the 70-year anniversary at the federal level of the SBA, just kind of wanted to remind you that that's a program that we're supporting. There are folks that can provide business planning, financial projections, helping with accessing capital, general business management and financial consulting services at no cost because of the support of the federal, state, and regional and local levels. And so that's part of the services, economic development services that are funded through the agreement we have with the county. And as you work with businesses, hear from businesses, obviously. James does a great job of getting on the road and getting out there and seeing folks. So no matter where in the county they are, up in the corners, down in the corners, either way, he's happy to help. And I sat in that role for about 5-6 years and have seen a lot of the corners of the counties around here. So definitely something, don't forget about those services and utilizing James and those efforts. Tied into that, see some things in the news recently. I've updated you, I think, a couple months ago on some of the efforts that we've been taking on when it comes to entrepreneurial funding. That's something that as a regional group of stakeholders, including Black entrepreneurs of the Flint Hills, Spark, Kansas State University partners, Small Business Development Center, the Chamber. And we're looking here a few years ago, we really prioritized trying to get more resources for entrepreneurs and saying, hey, where does that next generation of businesses, think about places like a Manco, Master Teacher, Civic Plus, GTM, companies that started small, 1 or 2 people out of a car, out of the garage, whatever it might be, and grew to be major employers in our region, major property tax contributors in our region. How do we help develop the next generation of those folks? And so one of the key gaps that very early on identified itself was access to capital. And that's how do you go in, maybe even before you're really bankable, or a lot of service businesses, service commercial businesses, contractors, a lot of those kinds of folks don't necessarily have a ton of tangible assets that can be collateralized for traditional financing. And so how can we better create, either bring to bear existing programs at the state or federal level and make sure that they're applicable here in Riley County, or how can we help create new programs within the county that our entrepreneurs can access? And so, we've probably seen some things in the news. We made an approach to the city here a couple months ago successfully to get some funding. Obviously, city money is going to be city specific, but I want to make sure to point out the fact that there are multiple programs. Most of them we're doing in concert with Network Kansas that are applicable across the county. And so things like our e-community loan program, every business that's located within Riley County outside the city limits of Manhattan could potentially access funds through that program. That's up to $45,000 in gap financing. If you've got a bank loan, you can for qualifying uses, you can apply for low interest money. There's the Grow Kansas program, which is a new program last year through the Kansas Department of Commerce. They've got a number of different programs, some minority and women business owners specific, some for what they term as rural distressed areas. So again, everything in the county outside the state limits of Manhattan would qualify. They have programs there that go up to $250,000. In fact, there's a business here in Manhattan that recently was approved for a $200,000 plus loan there, where they've got an SBA loan, they've got bank financing, and then they've also got this Grow Kansas loan, low interest loan that we help administer. We are, the chamber is the local administrator for that at the county level. And then we work through Network Kansas to work that process. There's local approval on those loans. And so just a reminder, those are great programs out there that are available for businesses in the county. And then we will be announcing here in the next month or so a new program specific to minority businesses through Network Kansas that's going to be rolled out at the county level. And so several different new programs there, but all in all, if you add everything up, anticipating this is anticipating a few future commitments yet from the city and from some other partners at the university. But an ongoing support of Network Kansas, we're talking about access to well over $1.5 million of funding for small businesses. And some of these we're doing things where, Riley County is eligible for $200,000 a year or for $100,000 a year for Network Kansas. So those can be really impactful. I would ask to help us get the word out. We're meeting with bankers, we're holding banker roundtable events, we're doing that kind of activity. But as you all hear from businesses, as you talk to folks, again, taking on additional debt isn't the perfect solution for everybody. So keep that in mind. These are all low interest loan programs. We understand that that's not always part of the equation for every growth pathway for a business, but for many it is, or providing that gap financing where they're collateralizing tangible assets, borrowing money from a bank, but then they've got some operating capital, or they've got some blue sky in a business purchase, or they've got some needs for new inventory purchase, maybe that wasn't in that financing deal. We've got some great tools that can come in and help them with that. So please help us share the word there. And then the last thing, I know this came up a little bit as part of the budget discussion a week ago, last Thursday, was just wanted to update a little bit on future business park development. We do feel that's something that's vitally important to attracting future jobs and companies, not just from the outside, but existing companies looking to grow in our area. There need places to put them. Obviously, we have some constraints within this region geographically, and for other reasons because of land use by obviously you've got a lot of university land use, a lot of Department of Defense land use, federal land use, some protected ground, a lot of floodway in the river valleys. So the challenges that we face geographically and due to terrain in some cases to identify sites can be challenging. I think that we're working on some plans there and working on some funding sources, including pursuing some federal money through EDA, working with Flint Hills Regional Council and some of their capacity to help with grant writing and things like that, to do that. So just want to let you know that that's ongoing, and I don't have a plan to throw up on the screen and show you. Don't have specific property at this point to talk about, although we've done some engineering studies over the last few years through the chamber to ensure that some of the property that we've targeted would be a potential good fit. But right now it's really about going out there and saying, how can we bring some dollars from the outside into the equation, and ensure that if an investment is made by local parties, including the county in infrastructure and things like that, that we can make a project go that ultimately can be a place for business to grow, add jobs, create more tax revenue. So hope to have some more news on that soon as we kind of work through this process, trying to chase down some funds. So with that, I'll hand it over to Christian to talk about things on the military side, and we'll obviously both be happy to answer any questions.
Jason, I have, before we go to that, I've got two questions on these business loans. Are those unsecured loans that you're talking about, that the people aren't personally liable if something happens to them?
They typically, it varies on the program. Yeah, there are a couple of those programs in Network Kansas that technically we can do unsecured without personal guarantee. There are some that require a personal guarantee from any business owner that owns over 20% of the business. And so but it varies on program, and honestly, some of that's based upon where the source of those funds are. Some of that's federal flow through funds at the state level. Some of it's generated through the sale of state corporate tax credits by Network Kansas. They're given that ability by the state legislature. So some of those programs, yes, but not all of them.
And then another question I have, and you may not be able to answer this, on the appropriations request that you have for 55,000 from the county. I was under the impression that that was going specifically to military relations, the whole amount, but in your it says in this one document, the request, it says only 20,000 goes to military relations. Can you tell me where the other 35,000 goes to?
Yep. So that's was outlined in I don't have the presentation in front of me, but there are a number of things there, including including the entrepreneurial efforts that we do, business traction. There's a breakdown there that kind of shows where the county monies, any city monies if applicable, and any Potawatomi County monies if applicable that go into those. So there's business attraction through Greater Manhattan Economic Partnership. There's the entrepreneurial efforts in supporting the Small Business Development Center office in the county. And there is, that's the military piece for 20, and I'm missing one more, but it breaks down in the slides that were.
Yeah, and I didn't know if it was divided up equally among those, or, but I thought all of it was going to military.
Yeah, 20 to military, and then you have the other 35 to a number of different components of the economic development program.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Good morning, Chairwomen and Commissioners. And my name is Christian Bishop. I'm the Military Relations Manager. So I'm excited to say we are officially 2 weeks away from our 16th annual Family Military Night for the Kaw Valley Rodeo. And so this wouldn't be available without our great sponsors. So we are going to host a dinner from 5:30 to 7 right next to the fairgrounds and have the One ID band play. Great. Chick-fil-A will be catering. So again, it's free and open to all military families, veterans, and service members from around the surrounding areas. And then starting in the middle of next week, we will start issuing out our free tickets that we have to offer. We have different locations, Briggs, Navy Federal, the MWR Outdoor Rec office, and of course, our office will be available for soldiers, family members to get tickets.
And I believe that 20,000 that we supply for that, those tickets are part of that.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, correct. Yeah. So that is part of where that budget goes to. And also great news, as you guys hear, 2nd Brigade is on their transition to start back to Fort Riley. And so they have been gone for 9 months to their rotation to Europe, which started last fall. And their mission was, of course, to train and to continue security forces and enhance NATO allies. And so you will see an uptick of soldiers coming home, families coming back. September is the 1 month of this year that all of Fort Riley will be home. So we are ramping up. We don't want to rush the fall, but Fort Riley will be excited to have everybody home for Apple Days. As you guys know, 1st Brigade had their change of command. Colonel McCarthy and Colonel Lahr, I have reached out to them, so I'm hoping that they can come and do a meet and greet at the next MRC lunch. So that you guys can meet all the new brigade command teams. And then the last update, you guys will start to hear, so July 26th, Fort Riley is doing what's called a Black Start exercise. And this is just an Army directed planned power outage, situational awareness for you in the community, but from 4 a.m. to about 1 p.m. On the 26th, Fort Riley is going to operate in the dark is what they call. And so they are going to do a power outage. The Fort Riley Garrison homepage has great information on how people can prepare for this Black Start. Like I said, it's just an exercise, but even just information on the community on what to do for a long extent of power outages and things like that. So can you give any questions?
There's a barbecue coming up on the 31st
Of August.
August, that's right.
Yes, 31st of August, the CG will have this annual barbecue. So they haven't released much details, but that is coming up. So
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Plan on the budget.
Ready? Good morning, Commissioner Rick Barber, Riley County Clerk. First off, wanted to start off trying to clarify the question from the board regarding the confusion on the 8% and the 5%. I think the description describes it pretty well, and then we attach the spreadsheets to where you can look at it and stand for any questions on that from the board. Sorry for that error on our part. We revised these spreadsheets to make it a little easier for anyone to really see and make sense of it, and having to realize which departments get funded COLA from which areas, because it does get confusing with different departments getting different funding from different areas. So that's those first two attached spreadsheets there. So you can go
I
ahead.
had a question.
Yeah,
And then it says, you say community corrections had the COLA in their budget.
it is in that transfer that we're making to them, the 87,000.
But they had already accommodated for the COLA. They had
No,
already,
the COLA is in there, the COLA.
it actually, it was already in that number, but we had that number before we had agreed on a COLA.
Well, you hadn't approved their transfer neither. So it's just like the COLA, it's contingent on your approval, their appropriation. Nothing that we presented you has been approved.
I realize that, but I'm just, you're saying that the COLA was already into that number, but that was before we discussed the number. So what was the COLA in their number?
Well, staff had met at great length with community corrections and that when Daryl was here on what they thought their appropriation would need to be, because the commission was going to need to know what their appropriation was
Right.
going to be to cover salaries.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was in that 87,000. And like I said, last year, whatever we had approved, 50-some thousand, they didn't use it all and they returned it, but we have to have that number in there somewhere tentatively to account
I
for it.
understand, but so I assume that would have 8% on it then. If they were doing it before we talked about it.
Yeah, I do not know if it did or not.
I can't verify if it had 8% or 5%, but I could if you give me time, but I will say that that's the amount that they submitted to the state. And so if the way that I understand is that transfer, I mean, that's what the commissioners agreed that would be submitted to the state because of the timeline. Remember, we discussed that and then.
Remember the timeline issue we had on the commission wasn't very happy, and I think
Yeah.
Commissioner
because we had to
Fogel
do
in
it that
particular
day.
about
Yes.
how we had to do it that day before we even started our budget process, really,
Yes.
and so we have to have a number in there. If the commission would like to lower that number, we can, or we're perfectly fine with, like I said, it was in two or 3 years ago that we even started doing that. And like I said, the commission for years have been opposed to subsidizing the state directly in that manner, but you know, it's unfortunate. Catherine and I were talking about this morning, this very subject, and unfortunately, that's what we have to do at the motor vehicle department too. But we've done that the entirety of my career. We've always had to subsidize the state in motor vehicles. We don't like it, but it's part of it. They are, as I was talking to Catherine, they are our employees. They do live in our community, you know, and they bear the same cost the rest of us do. And so don't like it, but I just think it's something we need to do. The commission doesn't have to.
If the question is just whether, I mean, they will, if you approve the 5%, they will receive 5%. And so just like Rich mentioned, if there is money left at the end of the year, they would return it because it's very specific only to personnel. They wouldn't accidentally receive a different COLA.
And this is problems that their fiscal year creates with our fiscal
Right,
year.
I know there's that.
But that number was in the appropriations, not in the budget, the 87.
Correct, it's down here,
Yeah.
let me get to it.
Was it? Yeah, it was on the outside appropriation.
Community corrections, last year 59,602, this year 87,324. As I said, the 59,602 was not completely utilized by them, so they did voluntarily return what was not used.
But that was also a half a year within the constraints of our budget cycle.
It is. That
I
is,
don't know how that works with the state. I guess that'd be 3 months or something, but
yeah, it's always difficult because theirs goes from, the
July 1
fiscal
to,
year and ours goes the calendar year. And so that was trying to project what a realistic number would be. And I don't want to misspeak. I don't believe that we used 8% because we didn't believe that was a realistic number to submit to the state, but I am trying to find the spreadsheet on here. It's not working, but I can confirm.
Yeah, I'd like to know that.
Yeah, and they won't get paid. They'll get paid what you approve.
And we could reduce that appropriation accordingly.
Yes, outside of this, yes.
I'm trying to see. What it's, so, you know.
We just haven't quite mentally been able to justify being in appropriations as opposed to a regular budget.
That's because personnel is in the regular budget.
Yeah, I wish we could figure that out.
And I think you've got it listed basically in the appropriations as both. So whatever we do give them as appropriation compared to the personnel are both included in that.
They are in that spreadsheet that he had up, we have that in there so you can
Right.
see the impact, but it's not included in this number.
Correct.
And like you said, that's what was submitted to the state. That doesn't mean that's what we have to, you as the board have to approve here. If you look on that 5% spreadsheet breakdown there, commissioners, you know, that amount there for community corrections juvenile and community corrections adult comes to about 33, a little over 33,000. Do you remember what they spent in total last year of the 59 that we gave them?
Well, you know, we were having those conversations there. So we gave them 59,000 and we were had projected to use all of that. The only difference is that there's $6,800 because the person that's in the position was here for our whole calendar year, but was not here for the whole state fiscal year. So there was about a month and a half that they could use from the state funding that they did not use from the county. So that we took that from the state grant first and then took it from personnel.
And that's what they always intended to. They only intend to use our monies when the state monies don't cover what they need. And that's the only purpose for it, really, you know, and the commissioners wrestled with this for honestly decades, you know, because they didn't like not giving all employees the same amount. Or if they did, then it had an adverse impact on community corrections in other areas. And finally, you know, I think it's time to do this, and I think it's the right thing to do, since there are employees be treated the same as everyone else. But yeah, we could reduce that accordingly if it does need to be. Before I go to the overall budget development worksheets, any other questions on that narrative up above or the two spreadsheets presented? I think the format of these spreadsheets helps make things a little more clear where things are funded from. And how we got those total numbers, and the number that we were missing there. So, I mean, Commissioner Ford, we got questions that came in, you know, where did we cut? And, you know, we mentioned the COLA, but, you know, not giving a 8% and giving a 3%, you know, that cut $333,000 out of the budget. We took $250 from county general. We took $250, actually $500,000 from county general, $250 in that contractual line item and $250 in budget stabilization. So those were some significant cuts. We also made some significant cuts of $500,000 in the budget stabilization, as well as $200,000 in public works that I'm sure John won't let me forget.
He's got it written on the wall.
Probably gonna own a tea or something. Okay, with going on to the overall budget development worksheet, commissioners. So here is the budget development worksheet. Everything has been changed as agreed upon by consensus of the board. Board can give us further direction on any area, but in particular, the community corrections, as was just currently discussed on the appropriations. You can see the overall impact is a reduction of the mill of 0.083. So, of course, we would be exceeding the revenue neutral rate if the board, after any discussion you want to have today or any adjustments, we would ask to put on the agenda for Monday, the board approving the notice to exceed the revenue neutral rate for both the Riley County Fire District number 1 and Riley County. And so we would have those on the business meeting for the board to sign, so we can then schedule the public hearing and the R&R hearing.
So the fire district is gonna have to exceed 2. Okay. I mentioned that on Monday and it was.
Excuse me?
I said I mentioned that on Monday and it was thought that they weren't gonna have to.
So we're getting the paperwork ready to do that. We have gotten the information preliminarily to the auditors so they can start reviewing this. With commissioners know our timeline is we always like to get it to the auditors a week ahead so they can start reviewing, since it is a lot of numbers. and see if we missed anything or have any adjustments in between now and then. Like I said, it does have to be adopted by next Thursday. My goal is to get it to you Monday, but if not, we can wait until Thursday and do it. I was thinking about having the R&R hearing and the public hearing the end of August. We have to mail out the R&R hearing notices to the public by August 9th. On or before August 10th, it says. We have it, want to have it out by then. We're having a special meeting with our vendor on that very subject via conference call with the counties that they provide these services to, so. Creates a lot of work for our vendors as well when they make changes to the R&R format. So any discussions on the overall or individual budgets that the commissioners would like to adjust? Remember, by state law, once it is adopted, which we're not asking you to, the formal adoption would be either Monday or Thursday of next week, but agree by consensus or a motion to proceed with the 2024 budget as presented after any adjustments are made by the commissioners. That way we can proceed with the formal paperwork and we can get the correct mill levy rates, because in that notice to the public on R&R, we have to have the proposed mill levy rate inserted in there.
Any direction?
See the inflation came in lower.
That's John and I were talking about
Talking about that
yesterday, yeah, Wednesday. I think it's at 3.
Inflation went up about 0.2%, which was well under what was estimated, but still well over where everybody would like to see it right now. So.
Well, on the COLA amount, we have by consensus said 5% COLA and review in the mid-year. And if we're reviewing mid-year, we can reduce it as well as.
Wouldn't advise that.
No.
Well, I mean, we could, that's
You
what-
can.
yeah, depending on where we are.
I
Yeah,
would suggest if we're not comfortable with that now, that we make that change now and not.
I was just throwing it out there.
I think from my perspective, that review would be contingent on if they went the other direction,
The other direction.
which we've seen it happen, but. I think the variables of next year and the way things are tracking probably isn't.
Probably not.
And I'll be remiss to say it's a presidential election year. I'm just gonna throw that out there too. Make of that as you will, but yeah.
I think it's low, lower now, I think it's 4 now.
any further direction from the commissioners on the proposed 2024 budget? Adjustments you'd like to make, consider, discuss?
Are we thinking 4? I can live with that.
I'm still, that's why I'm number begin.
I'd remind the commissioners that, I mean, I know there's been a lot of discussion on the COLA, but the numbers are the numbers that were presented since the last adjustment was made. There's no numbers that have been doubled up on the CPI. And so the 8% is the true COLA since the last time there was an adjustment. And so,
I don't agree.
well, based on when we did it, based on.
We're
our
basing it off
policy
of
is
a
what I'm
policy. That's
Based on-
But policy didn't allow for the fact that we made huge increases last year.
But
That was-
those,
that
once
was the
again, those,
policy. I know, but
those increases.
in your
based on-
proposal, you said everything was good. As of January 1 this year, everything was brought up to date. But then you're trying to go back and say, well, last year's inflation was this much, we need to accommodate for that. But we already did that once.
It was good based on the same policy, the previous year's CPI plus market adjustment plus raises that commission did not give it in the past. That was the market adjustment. So, but what was not in the 8% is not a reusing of any of those numbers. 8% is per policy. You can change it, but what if the thing is, if you change it now because it's going down, then next June, or each year, every time it goes up, do you adjust and not follow policy? That's why policy is generally best and most consistent. Follow item.
Policy
Policy doesn't take into account economic conditions as they change.
Economic
And
conditions change
where-
every month,
right.
Commissioner.
But normally, because I've been through 5 of these processes and pre-pandemic, that has been about a 1 to a 3% change, which is workable with that policy. But when that changes 3 to 4% between 2 months, that changes the conditions of it. And you can't just look at that in real time of where we're at right now. It's changed considerably. And there's economic conditions within our community that we need to be able to factor into. And that's why we have to I'm not saying change the policy. I hope we get back to that normal standard, and I'm perfectly okay with that. But we aren't there currently, and we need to factor that into the equation.
So.
Another important aspect is market, and you know what the other public entities have done.
No, actually, only one has actually done anything at this point in time. The other one is still a consideration, much like ours, and I don't know where they're going to land on that, but RCPD is the only one that's adopted a budget. Manhattan's still working on theirs.
No, we got their R&R letter, Commissioner. I received their R&R letter at 10:30 last night.
So what's their COLA?
I don't know what their goal. I just know their budget's done. I know their budget's done. I received the R&R letter last night from Brenda Wolf at 10:29 PM exactly. So it is done. I don't know what the rate is.
And I would also suggest if we want to look more real time, if we use the annualized rate, which our employees have experienced to what has been published. Now, I haven't included the 3% from this month, right? So I know it was 7.06. It would be down a little bit. So, but even if we're saying it went down to 6, which 1 month wouldn't have impacted it that much. That's still the fact that our employees have experienced that. I mean, that is our experience back in the day.
Keep in mind, we also have the
Experience
community.
43.
It's not just our employees, it's
I
the
know.
entire community.
I know,
Okay.
I know. And
They
they,
had 2% on top of this.
That's for merit.
Yeah.
There will be anyone that's in the labor industry that says you need to continue to do merit and COLA if you're going to keep up with market. That is part of what I keep saying made up that 10.5% is when that's not followed. Everyone will tell you that has to be done. And as I pointed out, that's not this commission's fault, but that's the reality of it.
And we did that last year.
Correct. Last year to catch up to those numbers at that point in time.
it would not be great to do anything about making it. I guess my point is that before COVID, our employees experienced that 1 to 3, we responded to 1 to 3. Post-COVID, it's high. It's so high. We're all in shock about it, but our employees are also experiencing that. It's not something that they didn't experience or would be getting as a bonus. I mean, they are experiencing that cost increase as well. And I understand that citizens are, and the balance has to be somewhere in the middle. That doesn't necessarily mean that we don't have employees because they can go somewhere else and get a more competitive pay.
So I don't know what the city did. We know what RCPD did. We know Locke County did 5% plus doubled their deferred comp match. We do not have a deferred comp match.
That is the third thing.
5, evaluated. Like I said.
If we're gonna do the 5, I'm probably not gonna want to reevaluate it this time. Unless it goes up to 13% or something like that.
Right.
But if it does that, we're gonna have to be reevaluating quite a few other things, not just for
Don't say that.
But to your point, John, if these things continue the way that we hope, I mean, not that anyone can predict it, there would not be a need for reevaluation, right? I mean, you guys can assess that mid-year and say, yes, we have an economic situation, or, okay, we're good.
Mhm. Yeah, just because it's reviewed at mid-year doesn't mean that it's to increase. It just says, here's where we're at. The
Right.
commission has to look at it. It doesn't mean that there would even warrant an increase.
Right. And then we'll do that again in the following year, whatever policy you choose, and we may not warrant, I mean, we've had years that didn't warrant it. If we continue to go down and the market rate of positions is competitive, that's what we'll bring to you.
And here, Commissioner Ford, is the difficulty I have with your reasoning on that is if next year we go by policy and it's 1%, but then we're in this same point in time and it's 6% when we're having these discussions, then are you willing to look at raising it to the 6%?
Yes, because that's what's gonna keep up with where we're at, and that was the whole point of doing
That's the
this.
point, yeah.
I absolutely would.
So it might make sense to change the policy to a current rate of end of June or maybe.
I might want to just watch it for one more year before maybe going that way, because I'm hoping it gets back to that normal frame where it's a 1 to 3% range, and it makes absolutely good sense. But we're not there at this point in time, and that's my point.
See, we
And-
used to use May 31st.
Right.
COLA years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you said, I started here with Stoneman.
1868.
Just, so, we used to always follow the May 31st CPIU annualized amount. And then once again, and, I'm sorry, it's just politics is frankly all it is. The city didn't like the rate, was high. The county didn't like the rate was high. RCP didn't like the rate was high. It was much lower at the end of December. So let's use December. So that's what everyone changed their policy to. So see what I'm saying? I don't agree with changing policy just because you like that number better.
Well, change is difficult, but that's what's happened here, and I'm looking at it in real time, not wanting to necessarily change policies and go through that process, but look at that factor as we're here with the hopes that we get back to some normalization on that, but we're not there currently. And we need to be able to take that into consideration when making that
So that's
decision.
why I think Commissioner McKinley, the May 31st would have addressed your concern better because it would have taken in these more recent declines. You see what I'm saying? I think it was better how we had it before, but for political reasons, frankly, is why it got moved to the end of December. Because it was a lower
I'm
number.
saying they weren't following policy anyway. Maybe the policy, but if everybody had followed policy, we wouldn't have the problem last year. So it hadn't been fought. It isn't like this the
Oh,
first
yeah,
time.
for sure.
This isn't the first
For
time
sure.
it changed. So I don't,
For sure.
policy is a guideline. It's not a rule. I mean, it's not a statute.
No, it is not. It's not a law.
You have to realize there's certain factors, and it plays in at the local level of why we're here to begin with. And we've injected trillions of dollars into our economy in a short amount of time, with not a really good return on investment on that, and without letting those factors work back into to process that. We're going to be here for a while. That's just a fact. But if we can at least balance out and get to a comfortable state there, then the policy still works okay at that point in time. I'm not trying to address that, but I'm trying to address where we're at 2023, trying to work into conditions and estimate where we're going to be in 2024. And I believe right now that policy isn't the best factor in being able to accomplish that.
So in working through real time, I mean, actually, the 5% based on the numbers, as I calculated, it came out to 5.02 with adding, that so the last reduction was at 3.79 more real time. That was more accurate, which was, I think, what you were trying to accomplish.
Yeah, that was the first 6 months of 23.
Right.
But none of us can see what's gonna happen, so I still like 5%. It seems to be a good average.
And that also doesn't take into account the 2.1 to 2.7, that range for steps too. So it's
Yeah, which is,
actually, when you get down to the end of it, it is actually pretty close to 8%. With both of those included.
what is it, 7.12?
Yeah, 7. Mhm.
7.12 or something to that. effect.
And remember, those numbers are in the individual budget, so that's accounted for in here.
And I would remind commissioners that it's really a delicate balance to think about changing merit, right? Because employees continue to have your tenure, and that's how they earn merit. And it's already lower. Merit is lower than it has been traditionally, historically, and there's just a balance there, and it's the hard spot that we're in.
Yeah, that is something we did change with the last adopted pay scale last year was that, the average step used to be just over 3%. Now the average step is just over 2%. And so,
In terms of personnel, where is our actual focus? Because when you deal with COLA, and I'm just saying this outright, the more you make and the longer you've been here, the more COLA benefits you.
Mhm.
Percentage wise. I mean, if you're making $100,000 and you get 5% COLA, you're going to get more of that than if you're making $40,000 and you've just walked in the door.
Mhm.
So if our efforts moving forward is about recruiting new people here, where does that balance come into play?
well, that's.
I think, when I compare our upper salaries, our supervisory salaries, department heads, so on and so forth, we're more than competitive to most of the now we're more than competitive with most of the area. I still think maybe on the lower end, that's where our adjustments are really going to have to probably come to get quality people in and then hopefully retain them. So moving in the future, I mean, you know, maybe a one size fits all COLA isn't the best approach to balance that out either. And it's something that needs to be at least discussed along the way. I'm not talking right now, but as we move into future budgeting.
And we can discuss the impact of that. I know you and I had talked about it briefly, but I will say from a HR perspective, the purpose of COLA is to keep us at market value. So that moves our pay scale to market value is so that we avoid the situation where someone has to quit their job, get a new job in order to get a pay increase. And there are a lot of industries that literally work that way. The only way you can move up the ladder is to go to different places. And so, you know, I take my experience and all everything you
Believe me,
get,
I know.
everything you've trained me on, and go make $10,000 more at a neighboring county, which has recently occurred. So, you know, those are the things, that's the point of COLA, is to keep us there competitive at market. And I mean, I'm more than happy to go and just do a quick, you know, market study of our jobs. I mean, it's not gonna happen today.
No.
But I would say that we are most likely at that 75th percentile, which is what we aimed for when we did our salary study. It's only been, well, we finished it in September, so it hasn't, you know, been a full year. I do not think that we are going to come out extremely more competitive than the other jobs with equivalent requirements.
Explain market and market value.
Sure. So market value is basically taking the requirements for the job. So whether it's education, years of experience, skill that I have, and saying in any job that has a similar thing. So me as a person, I have this set of skills and education. What can I go make in any job that requires that? So looking in the private sector, looking in the public sector, where can our employees take their experience and skills and education, and what can they make? What is we used 75th percentile. And so we're trying to place our jobs in the 75th percentile of our market, which is going to be this Manhattan, Riley County area. And Rich has told me a couple of times, you know, we're the second most expensive in the state. So it's not going to be the same value if we go west. It's just not, because if I move out to a small town, realistically, I don't expect to make as much money. It's just, that's the market is different. The economy is different.
Okay. So what factors into expense or cost of living locally?
Yeah. So again, all of that is entwined in that.
Sure.
Right? So at my level, my employee level, what I can go and earn determines how much I can afford for a house, how much I can afford with the groceries.
And that's what I'm saying. What factors into the price of housing, the price of utilities, price of consumables?
It's all connected. So then the market value, if I know I can take my skill set and make, you mentioned 100,000, 100,000 is my thing, but I know elsewhere in Riley County, I can make 110, 115, then my ability to buy that house or that groceries or that restaurant meal goes up, and people have personal interests, right? So we want to make sure that our employees have enough to purchasing power to afford the lifestyle that they want to have in Riley County, and they're not motivated to leave us because they can have a better lifestyle at another employer. So, you know, I mean, this is you are thinking about, you know, the whole economy, and I'm telling you the impacts of this on an HR perspective.
I am too. And I'm telling you, these decisions impact the other side of that in terms of cost of living.
I can't disagree. It is all in
Because
line.
when everybody increases theirs, guess what increases? 5% increase for tuition at K-State. Utilities, I know Evergy is going and asking for nearly a 5% increase on their rates.
Yes.
And so you may add that to the equation, but eventually you're taking it back up in the cost that you're consuming along with it. And it's turning into kind of a vicious cycle in some aspect.
You guys have a hard job. You guys have to balance these things. And at the same time, if I think about an individual employee who is going to experience those rates, they're going to experience those increases. So individual employee, if I now can't afford those things, but I can go and move to, you know, XYZ company or XYZ county and make more money, then I can afford my 5% increase and my 20%.
But I'm saying what we're doing here affects those.
It does. It's all
It
intertwined.
does. It always has.
Yeah.
though.
I
I
know,
don't disagree.
but it's accelerated. It's accelerated now.
There's no way to disconnect it. But what happens if you do the opposite, John? You leave everyone where they're at for multiple years. What's that do to your economy? And here's what I'll tell you. As you know, John, I just recently got appointed to sit back on a Chamber of Commerce committee, and it was a full house this week, and kind of this subject came up about population trends, meaning, you know, people for working, and everyone at the table, except for us local government, city and county officials and school district, they pay $5,000 a pop to sit at that table I'm sitting at. And guess what? All of them said, we want all of the employees in Riley in the community, not just our public entity, to get raises. We want wages to go up. Why? They knows that's what keeps the economy going. I don't disagree you're chasing your tail, but the economy's always done that. So what's the impact for us gonna be if you hold all public government employees in Riley County lower than what market is? Ask those same companies that you commissioners are hearing from, because it's got realtors and other people in the real estate business. What do you think it does for their market? The same ones you're hearing about concerns of our hours. They want wages to be good for public employees because they know we're the largest segment around here. That's what keeps this economy going, like it or not. And that's what our focus and our discussion was, is how do we grow the other side of that so that we're not so dependent on that. That's what we're working on. But like it or not, that's where we're at right now.
I disagree. I'm sorry.
It's a fact.
And you talked about the city and RCVD code, what's K-State got?
I think 3,
Because they're a bigger employer than the other two put together, I'm sure.
I think 3.
They're the
The problem is we're taking all the resources away from that last part of being able to happen, to be able to grow the other side to eventually balance everything out. I mean, the average age in Riley County right now is 27.8. At that age, there's a lot of different variables right now than some of us older people. Don't take offense to that, but I'm including myself in that too. So, school, student loans, price of childcare, daycare, the overall being able to balance that out with the price of housing. And we're still sucking the life out of that. I'm sorry, we just are.
I'll bet the average age right now is higher than it's been in the past several decades because the population in K-State's 4,000 less. The age is all due to the students.
Yeah.
Trust me, I was.
Most of that's actually on the undergraduate side, so probably doesn't affect that as much as you think, but point taken.
And I know you have hard decisions to make. I would just refer back to the 3 things that our employees, our internal employees asked for, was market equity in their pay. And more time off, which we will just continue to discuss, and then retirement. And that was a huge impact that one of our local competitors had. It's a huge impact. It's something that they're looking for. And something that can get in a private sector that currently not available to us.
Kind of know.
Options like a bonus, like sharing of the profit.
Right.
And
I do agree with
that. Just pretty.
Yeah, I do agree.
And that's what I reminded commissioners about last time. That's all I've been a strong advocate for. Good pay at Riley County, and the 75th percentile isn't something new. My first term here, that's where that county commission, because we had a couple people come in and do analysis on where our pay was, market equity, and that's what that commission said at the time. We don't want to be at the 100th percentile, which is the top. We want to be at the 75th, and even back then, 2.5 decades ago, they said that's where we need to be, and all the factors that go into it, like it or not, is cost of living around here. It's always been high. I mean,
It's a college community. College communities are always going to do that.
I don't know if
But I think the one factor here that's different than some is we don't have balance within that private sector. And it's, we're a smaller population too of most general Division I communities, and you can make of that as you will. That factors in even more to certain circumstances to get to that point. We want to continue to provide good services. We want to continue to have good transportation infrastructure, although John might not believe that at the moment, but
keep taking it away.
I know. But something has to give. I mean, if this is truly our priority, then we need to make future budgets with that in mind, and some other things within our budgets that need to go to balance that out too. We have to play the same cards. I mean, to be honest with you, I look at this and I see good in this budget at this particular point in time. I think where we're at right now does take care of those factors, and I do believe that that's important. But there's some factors it doesn't take into consideration. We aren't making those challenges that are required of us in terms of revenue neutral and everything else, even if we don't agree with it. I mean, it is what it is. Valuations have gone up significantly over the last couple of years. This is still a property tax increase, bar none. And it's pretty significant when you look at $2.9 million, and just where we're at in that equation. And there's some other things that we can work on to maybe facilitate that. I mentioned one of them this morning, but we're not there for this one. And so that's still a huge impact. And believe it or not, that impacts our employees too. Because they pay property tax, and even if they're renting, they're paying property tax indirectly. So, we giveth and we might just take it right back too. So, we have to factor all that into the equation here. And we have to look at those elements for the future. We just do. And kind of past that point at this particular point in time.
Yeah, we can't solve.
I've told the general public too, that there's no way possible that moving forward that we can continue to hold a 42 something type of mill levy either. We've done that, if we adopt this particular budget, we've done that pretty consistently over the last couple of years, but gonna be able to hold that water forever. That's just the reality too. But we added some positions this year. I appreciate each department working with us on incorporating some of those, but
Well, we need to deal with what we have to deal with today. I think we've got a good budget here. I think
that's fine.
cut and pasted a lot. I think we need to kind of deal with what we've got. Move on and see what happens.
I'd like to move on with the idea of doing some things a little bit differently. I like your idea on appropriations of, I think,
Some kind of a limit.
yeah, and kind of being consistent. My biggest surprise from this budget, to be honest with you, is that the value of a mill levy didn't really move when other factors that based on it did. That's a very compelling, red flag thing. And 72,000 movement in there when some evaluations went up 13-17%. Really shocked on that. That means the value of things in general just aren't moving in a solid direction. That coupled with our exemption rate here.
That's what I was gonna talk about, yeah.
Is a big part of that. The fact that we aren't getting our demand transfers. I mentioned that already this morning, so I'm not going to rehash that, but there are some factors that we need to work on to clarify some things to push that out and make those numbers more usable in terms of what we need to do as a county. But I can go on forever. I won't, but I'm both happy with parts of this, and I'm both still very, very frustrated with parts of this.
I think that probably is true of all of us. We're all
I mean,
positive and, but there's a negative
I
side.
gotta understand. I get the other side of it. I work too.
Yeah.
A little too much over the last few days, and I'm feeling that. But I work with people, and I watch the struggles that they go through. It's the same.
Sure.
It's the same there. Some of them work 40, 50 hours a week, and they have to do it. It's not voluntary. They have to do it. And they have the same concerns: childcare, housing, taking care of those responsibilities. And we've got good people for the most part.
We've got great people.
Attitude, morale sometimes changes in the midst of that. And that's a human factor, and you can't do much about that. But we're not talking about rich, wealthy people. We're not talking about people that work really, really hard and make $40,000, $50,000 and not $100,000. I mean, it's quite compelling, the difference with that.
Yeah.
And I factor that into some of those principles, and I factor that in when I make decisions based off of this, and I kind of have to.
Right.
So,
Well, and remember, Commissioner, I don't have the number in front of me, but when we talked about employee day, we just gave you the average salary, around the county is not.
no, I
Yeah.
know.
So there are plenty of people here making that.
And that's why I made the comment earlier that when we factor in COLA, that factor should factor in more on the lower end than it really should on the higher end. Right. And I'm not a mathematician on that, but when we look at future budgets, we should consider that idea and at least have a good formalized discussion on it. Because that's a way to balance things out and still keep where we need to be and still keeping the community and the region's economic interests involved in that discussion too.
We can bring those numbers and talk about that for future.
Right.
That's a huge change, so. We don't have the time frame to do that.
Well, so I remember right, you've got some extra HR personnel, so you should be able to have some extra.
That's all payroll.
About extra. We're trying to get up to speed.
So
Got a person that's working on numbers. That was my point.
Okay, let's move on though. We need to
We don't get them until 6 months, so remember.
I didn't say we had to do that today, by the way.
So do we want to go forward with this budget as presented with the 5% COLA?
Sure, I said 4, she said 5. The way the world's on you, they took.
It's been that way all week, so I'm already accustomed to it, so no worries there. No. I'm gonna go ahead and go with the 5. But don't expect a lot of leeway and leverage moving forward. That's what I'm gonna tell you.
Okay, so, so what do we need to approve this budget as presented?
Yeah, as
With the
presented.
5%?
And we'll proceed. And like I said, as long as the auditors come back and everything looks okay, we'll plan on having on the business meeting, the notice of intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate on the business meeting for Monday. If we aren't ready Monday, we'll do it by Thursday, which is the last day we have to, which is July 20th.
Okay, so we have agreement by consensus, or do we need a motion on this, or what do we? what-
I'd probably prefer making a motion.
Motion would be great.
Official, you know.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I don't see them.
well, no, there's not on this one.
Come
I
up-
did have one other question.
Yeah.
On the fire district.
Mhm.
What type of increase are we looking at there in terms of the revenue neutral? Or just,
Do you remember?
I didn't put that, it's not much, it's not a lot.
because if I remember right, they were gonna exceed that last year and we had a snafu with it and we had to leave.
I remember
We had to leave
budgetarily,
it
it was like
flat.
$100,000 increase, but I don't know the mill levy rate impact on that. It was 1,080,000 some thousand last year, and this next year is 1,180,000.
But if I remember right, we had to hold them flat due to. It was due to a publishing
Yeah.
issue or something in the mix of that on the revenue neutral, so I was kind of curious how much that would impact.
We'll
Even
we'll
into
have
this
Ricky
year.
get that and just email the commissioners.
Okay.
That.
I'm just curious.
Myself.
I mean, it doesn't change anything on our end, but I just. Okay. Well, now I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve for publication current 2024 budget as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the budget, publish the budget as presented. All in favor?
Do we need to make a second one for revenue neutral today? Or are we gonna?
That'll be on Monday. That's when you look off that notice, and we actually have to have the chair sign a copy of this one here blank without any mill levy in it, because we didn't know if there'd be any changes today. And still contingent on the auditors reviewing what we've given them.
That'll be Monday or?
We're hoping if everything looks okay, or if they're done and they get it back to us in time to get it into your packets, because that's a short timeline. If
Yeah,
not,
it
it'll be
is.
Thursday morning.
Have you already given it to them?
We did. We told them there might be changes, but we
Give
give them a head start because it's a short
That's what you're saying,
timeline.
you
for
have
them.
by Monday, I went, how are they gonna do that?
Yeah, I told Rick, I said, if we can get it to them Wednesday preliminary, tell them there might be more changes coming, but if they can start, that way, my goal was Monday.
Oh, okay.
But for sure Thursday, because you know, we were all on short timelines, so he said he didn't really think it'd take too much time, so. And they were in the office yesterday working on the audit, so.
Okay, no, it's probably, we're gonna adjourn after our fence viewing.
Yes. Yes.
Which is, we're gonna meet back here at,
Well, actually, I guess it's set up for you to adjourn now after the fence day, so it's probably easier to do that.
okay,
Drop off Commissioner McKinley and then forget to make the motion, so. No, let's go ahead and make the motion now. It's set up that way in the packet to adjourn after the fence meeting.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to adjourn the June 13th meeting of the Riley County Commission after this afternoon's fence view.
Amanda, can you hang on a second? You got that? I'll second.
it's been moved and seconded to adjourn the July 13th meeting after our fence viewing this afternoon. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's fairly that's fairly validated.
Ma'am, yeah, I need to visit with Anna. Sure.
Yeah, go talk to them first. Talk to the
That's
boss
yours.
I don't know if they submitted.
I don't want to.
Oh, talk to the boss.
They were gonna keep, they're still working.
Okay,